Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerds Dave, and today I'm joined by Raya Sunshine, cast member from D4. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Awesome. So I guess if you want to just kind of like give people the quick elevator pitch where they can find you and what it is that you do.
Right. I do a D&D live stream every Sunday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on the Rock Punch ATL Twitch channel. We also have all of our episodes on back catalog on YouTube under the Rock Punch YouTube title. I'm also a dog groomer and I play a mean person, but I'm not actually that mean.
So what is the appeal to playing a mean person since you brought it up?
Oh, yeah. My main character on D4, she's a high elf, so that entails a certain level of I'm better than you. And she's
Yeah.
also a wizard, which compounds on the level of I am better than you. And the twist is she's actually a necromancer, so she's a beautiful, perfectly packaged bundle of I'm better than you and you know it, and I'm also dark and edgy.
Oh, nice. So it's I'm better than you. I'm better than you. Oh, and I only really relate to dead things.
Exactly. I only like dead things, and if you're not dead, I can't relate to you, so I don't like you.
Yeah, that works. That works. So, I tend to favor dwarves and play a lot of dwarven characters, and I
I
agree that high elves are definitely haughty.
I I love the only dwarf I've ever played was actually the only campaign that I actually finished. I played a hill dwarf named Elga Ungart in Rage of Demons Out of the Abyss, and she was one of my favorite characters. She was a life cleric who had a separation anxiety because she was terrible at bringing people back from the dead.
So, quick question: dwarf women, beards or no beards?
Oh, I think it depends on the setting. Like in Waterdeep, I typically don't think of women dwarves with beards. I think of them with like mutton chops.
Okay.
And like, but if I think of Gauntlgrim, I'm thinking of like a thick goatee, a little bit of a mustache, because what's a dwarf without a fancy beard?
Yeah, yeah. So it depends on where
Right.
the
So
region,
like the
culturally.
more humanized dwarves would
Yeah.
probably not have beards. They would just have a little hint of a beard. But the more like dwarf would be like, no, I'm not taking off my beard no matter what you say.
I agree. Human propaganda is bad.
It is. It's a problem that needs to be stopped.
Yeah. For sure. I really like the idea of bearded female dwarves or women dwarves just because like it really breaks away from human cultures and traditions and makes them more unique and fantasy
Yeah, it
like.
gives them a level of flavor that the real world, well, I say the real world, but I'm
Yeah.
sitting here a bona fide bearded lady myself. And I love the flavor that it just adds to dwarves of being like, not only are they not going to shave it because that's what you think they should do, but also they have such a rich history about their beards and what adornments they put into their beards, that to take that away from women is just like erasing females from battle, which
Yeah.
is the opposite of what dwarves want to do.
So Laura Novo says beards for anyone who wants beards. I 100% agree.
100% agree.
Beards shouldn't be forced upon anyone. But if they want one, they should be able to have one. We have a wizard subclass we made, beardomancy, and part of it is you can grow a beard if you couldn't before. So,
I love that. I
and
as part of Rage of Demons, I actually, as Elga, got a full beard because one of the wild magic surges of the fairsness was a beard of feathers that only went away when you sneezed. And I didn't know that, so I had to wait until I actually sneezed out of play for the beard to go away. And it was months
oh,
before I was at the
nice.
table and actually sneezed.
I love the fact that you didn't know it, and the GM was like, "Well, that beard is staying until you actually sneeze."
Yeah, and then like this character had such a hard time not only growing hair but holding on to the hair that she grew. She started out with like long gorgeous hair, thick beautiful chops, and then like through a series of events she just kept losing her facial hair and her hair. She flame striked herself twice, and that just singed everything away.
Why did she flame strike herself? Not once, but twice.
She was unfortunately swallowed by a purple worm in the
Mm.
Underdark. So she was like, well, what am I going to do other than flame strike from inside of it and not only take the damage, but also try and get this thing to throw me up?
I feel like that'll do it. So is there any extra benefits for flame striking from within?
I for sure hit. It
Yeah.
couldn't move out of the way because
Nice.
I was directly where it needed to be. And the downside was that I also took the damage and I couldn't save from it
Oh,
either.
nice.
Yeah.
Sort
It's
of. Anyway, purple worms tend to have a lot of hit points compared to player characters.
See, but when you're a life cleric,
Yeah.
HP is like a bargaining chip in combat. It's like, I'll give you this, but I'm ultimately going to win because I have more than you
Yeah.
do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. How did you get started with D4s?
So, one of the DMs is actually my cousin, and he ran the Rage of Demons campaign, and we've played with each other for a while, basically since I started Dungeons and Dragons when I was 13. I first played with them, and I've always had this insatiable need to role play intensely. Like, one of the first things they told me not to do is don't make a character that's connected to any of your other characters. And I was like, okay, cool. So I made a character. They went in, they died. And I was like, cool. I'm going to make another character. It's his daughter. And then she found her father's dead body and starts crying. And everyone was like, oh my God. And flash forward like 7 years, and we're playing Rage of Demons with Dustin, one of the co-DMs, my cousin. And we're role playing, and I start crying because one of the characters who was one of my best friends actually died, and I wasn't able to bring him back because his soul was not willing to come back. And I was sitting there and I was sobbing, and I went home and I was sobbing because it felt so real to me. I had played that campaign for over a year at that point, and I like to establish like real bonds between my character and like the little part of my subconscious that is my character and the NPCs that other people are playing or the other player characters. So when you lose one, it genuinely feels like you've lost a friend that you're never going to see again.
So is that why you were cautioned against any interactions or relations between any of your characters?
Right. Because I'm a very emotional person. I cry at the drop of a hat. And I honestly think, circling back to your actual question where this all started, um, I think the reason I'm on D4 is because I cry really well.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
bring a sense of drama and like realness, I think, not to toot my own horn, but a sense of realness to the table where we have a bunch of wacky characters. There's only like two really like dark and broody characters, and that's me and Patrick Logan from D&D Beyond's character Voss, who's a rogue and super edgy. I love Voss.
Yeah, I am the opposite. I've been told anyway that I have no emotions. I had them surgically removed. Um, Turns out
See
you don't
that
need them.
that's the hard part is I wanted to challenge myself. So
Mm.
for Vinley, she's very dry and she doesn't like anyone. So it was a challenge when she first met the group to not be immediately like, "Oh my god, I love you guys." It was a challenge to like kind of slowly let it unfold and not be like, oh, I'm gonna miss you. Of like being emotionless for the first time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that when you mentioned that character. edgy and brooding doesn't seem to go along with emotional.
Yeah, I really, really wanted Vinley to be a slow burn of a story, and I think I burned it slow enough. And we're not fully done with her, with like the full fleshed out details of her whole backstory. The viewers know a little bit about it, about her, the abuse that she had at the hands of someone she trusted very dearly. Um, I wanted to burn that out slowly and kind of play with a new idea of Vinley. Instead of her being angry all the time, let's just make her detached or disassociated from any given situation at any given point in time.
You There's also a connection to butterflies as well with that particular character,
Yes,
correct?
Vinley's familiar, her first familiar is actually a butterfly because um the aforementioned abuser was who Vinley thought of her only friend for most of her life, growing up on basically a druidic commune on an island just off the Sword Coast. Um, and he was the only one, though in secret, that was nice to her. Not even her own family liked her because they were all druids. They all dealt with life magic, bringing things to life, preserving things, and everything she touched withered and died, literally. So when he first, Illitron was his name, actually my sister's betrothed in game. He was supposed to be marrying my sister and then came after me for whatever reason. And Vinley had this little caterpillar that was the only creature other than Illitron that wasn't afraid of her, or that didn't run and hide from her when she came through the woods. And eventually it turned into a butterfly. And I think the story of Vinley very much mimics the progression and metamorphosis of a butterfly itself, because it starts off in the dirt, the lowest that a person can get, and then through a process of self-hardening and contemplation of pulling yourself back and saying, am I going to let this break me or not, she was able to become a butterfly in her own right and stop letting her past dictate her future.
When you mentioned that, I'm like, I'm pretty sure because your character's a necromancer. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure a previous edition there were like death butterflies or death
Oh,
moths.
I'm sure they were. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty young. I was born in 1996, so I caught the very tail end of 3.5.
Yeah,
I don't know many of the other editions. When fifth edition hit the internet, hit the stores, I was like, that one. I love that one.
yeah. Well, there's a benefit to that because unfortunately I have too many editions rattling around in my head, and it's like remembering which one what thing came from.
Yeah, it's like remembering, if you're like, for me, I play in like 4 or 5 different campaigns a week. So like going into a campaign, I have to really sit down before the session and be like, okay, this is the character I'm playing, this is the information they know, because some campaigns are very close to each other, like D4 and my Friday night campaign that I play with at home with people I absolutely adore. They're both having to deal with like eldritch horrors and that kind of thing. So I have to really process the information separately and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
sit down and say, okay, Vinley doesn't know about this whole aspect that I just fought in this other game. It's I imagine that's the same thing as balancing the editions of, like, on one hand, you have the 3.5 edition that's 20 million books stacked higher than the ceiling. Then you have the 5th edition, which is like beautifully simplified to the point where people who have never heard of Dungeons and Dragons can sit down and roll dice.
Yeah, it's very similar. So, of the games you're playing, are they all streamed or only some of them?
Only one of them is streamed.
Okay.
I typically I like my own privacy,
Yeah.
and I D4, I couldn't imagine streaming any of my other games alongside D4 because D4 has such an amazing cast of people and we have so many beautiful guests that come on, and I almost feel like my home campaigns are like these perfect little bubbles of like not only practicing my skills but also this is my time to be with my friends outside of like the internet. So
Yeah. There's a
yeah.
trap. There's a trap in there where you end up, you know, having all of your gaming life online,
Mhm.
and it's not the same, right? They're they're different. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? How, you know, playing in a stream game versus playing in your home games?
the the biggest difference is the need to perform. That's what I think kills a lot of streams is that inherent need to perform for the camera. Whereas like home games, nobody's watching. You can do whatever you want. Like Leah, my Friday night campaign, she's not gonna feel bad about burning down an orphanage. No one's gonna judge me for that. I'm an evil character. What are you gonna
Uh,
say about it? And versus Vinley, who's walking a fine line between evil and good, if she were to go like kill an innocent person, everyone would be like, excuse me, but there's there's a huge difference in home game versus stream game because you don't feel the need to perform or be like amp it up for the camera is how I should say it. Not like perform, but amping up your personality for a camera, which everyone does.
yeah. So I'm playing in an offline, well, it's online but unstreamed game with one of your cast members,
I have heard about this one.
and and a lot of people in that game weren't really playing any games offline, you know, or I mean unstreamed. And so like, oh, this is so refreshing. Where I mean, oh, I guess a couple of years ago we kind of took our home games and put them online,
Mhm.
and then we just like at some point we're like, you know what, we don't feel like doing this anymore, and like there's so many other people doing it so much better. Let's
Yeah.
just enjoy our home games, because it was like either we have to either step up and do a better job with the production of things, because literally it was like when we first started Nerdarchy 7 years ago, we would just set up, you know, our webcam on one end of the room and just get this long view of the table.
Oh, I
And
remember. I've been a huge fan of Nerdarchy since y'all have started because I the way I learn is going to YouTube and watching other people do it or see other people interacting with systems or like I love y'all's builds series that y'all do. Like the most recent one I saw was the never dying one.
uh
I I adore those because it I'm a very role play based player. So like seeing someone who's like doing a specific build really gives me that opposite perspective and I love Nerdarchy. Y'all helped me learn how to play D&D in the first place.
well, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say. But and we like doing the theorycraft stuff, and then like
Mhm.
figuring out how to like make them interesting and fun characters to like kind of play at our table as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, so like those games, it was just like we could either do this the way we're doing it, and like, you know, and you know, or make it better, and then
right.
and go forward. But again, too, it was just like our friends, and we're like coerce them into like being on stream, kind of.
Yeah.
And also too, it's nice to not have to like figure out. All right, did someone say something stupid that they shouldn't have said during the game? They have to go back and edit out. You know,
Yeah.
so
That's another thing is D&D for a lot of people is a place to decompress
yeah,
and like pseudo therapy, like my Friday night game. Like when I go there, I know I can like leave my purse at the door and come in and argue with people about things that I necessarily wouldn't say on the internet because I'm not a politician. I don't know how to word things correctly. So
Yeah. It's the
I don't
internet. I get
yeah.
it.
Like no matter what you say, your words will be misconstrued by someone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure just by saying that, people are gonna misconstrue my words.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a trap.
Everything's a trap.
Everything is a trap. Yeah. So so for us it was easy. And then like now we have a couple games that we put online, and they were they're kind of like meant to be online, and everyone kind of gets it. So it's just I think it's better, and I recommend for anyone who is streaming games to also have at the bare minimum at least one game that you don't stream where you can just like
That that was
do
gonna
your
be my
thing.
advice. Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's almost detrimental to a streamer to not have a game where they can just go play in someone's basement or living room or kitchen or dining room, where they can just go and be silly and have fun and not have the weight of an audience on their back.
so what is it that you enjoy about streaming games as opposed to just playing them offline with your friends?
I love the aspect of streaming where I get to tell a story to a broader audience, whereas usually, like with Vinley, she has a very close story to my heart. I've only told like 7 or 8 people. Now there's upwards of like 100 people that are learning about Vinley's story that I absolutely adore every week. I I love the aspect of storytelling that streaming allows you to do. And that's why I watch as many D&D streams as possible, because whether the production quality is good or not, they're still telling a story. And if their story is worth listening to, which 9 out of 10 times it is, I will be there to listen to it.
So what are some of the your favorite aspects of the game? And obviously
Oh.
storytelling, role playing, you've kind of mentioned.
The sense of unity that D&D brings out in people that you never would have expected. Um like on stream, we're all such close friends now. Like I feel like I can trust these people with anything and they'll have my back, which I know for a 100% fact that that's true. And if they called me at 3 a.m. and been like, "Hey, I need your help," I'd be like, "Okay, where is it? Like, where do you need me?" We're also these relationships have developed because of the stream. Like Ethan Mansour plays Harold Hovelton on D4. He's our bard, witty, love him. But the first time I ever met Ethan was at a as a oh, at a LARP, and he was playing this Harlequin character named Henry, and he had black and white face paint on, and he carried around a bat. And I remember I was playing a monster, so I was just wandering around trying to kill people, and he comes out of nowhere in pitch dark in the middle of a state park in who knows where, Georgia, and just starts beating me, calling out damage and laughing, like maniacal, evil laughing. And I just like laid there on the ground and I was like, that was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced in my life. And I would have never had the opportunity to get to know him if it wasn't for the stream. I just
Otherwise, he's just some kook that ran out of the woods and beat you with a styrofoam stick.
exactly.
Yeah. Uh, so you were doing LARPing as well?
I experimented and dabbled into LARPing. I'm very, very like nervous and anxious as a person. So D&D with new people takes a lot for me. Talking with
Mm-hmm.
new people takes a lot for me. So role playing a character as like from head to toe, like full body role playing and living in the life and surrounded by people who have been doing it for so long and so well, it scared me. I would love to give it another try when everything is less chaotic, but I quickly bowed out because I was like, I am out of my depth here.
Yeah, I can totally get that. I mean, to me, it feels a little odd to role play around other people. So, like, even in like a game store where that's kind of the environment and other people are playing games, I found find it out because most of our gaming experience has been at someone's house. Very
Yeah,
private, right?
it's almost intimate
Yeah,
to share your role playing with someone else. Like, not intimate in a sexual way, but like you're letting someone see a part of you that's very raw and vulnerable. Like, I used to be terrified to do accents. Spoiler alert, I'm terrible at accents and I should be embarrassed to do them. But I I used to refuse. Like, there was a point in my life in D&D where I was just like, I'm not doing a British accent. Period. But now, like, I sometimes when playing Vinley will slip into a slight British accent for a little
uh,
while and then it just disappears.
I'm laughing at Katie's comment in the chat. I'm dragging a bunch of the D4 folks to a LARP I play. so
Oh yeah.
so you've been warned.
We I've had a bunch of forewarning as far as that goes. She loves this LARP. I love this LARP, and I already have a whole character concept in my mind. I just
Yeah,
have to figure out what to wear because it's a Southern belle.
yeah. Ted used to be a pretty big LARPer. He ran a LARP for like 5 years,
Holy cow.
and then he had kids. And remember, especially the ladies, kids will wreck your body, then your life. That kids are great. I even have a couple. Yeah. So he'd been in the LARP scene for a while. We had actually considered resurrecting that LARP, and in the early days of Nerdarchy, we experiment with a lot of different ideas and concepts. And resurrecting the LARP he was involved in was one of them. I never came to fruition, and I've never actually LARP, so it would have been a first for me. Who knows? I may still yet one day.
It's it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it, but I felt very nervous and out of my league the whole time. And I feel like if I went back now, having the confidence that I have of sitting here in front of people just talking about myself, I I feel like I'd have a lot more fun at a LARP because I'm not literally in the corner shaking like I don't want to
Yeah.
talk to anyone because I feel like I'm gonna mess up their huge story that they have in plan.
Well, that's why we did a living campaign, me and Doug at Origins, like our first year, and we did do like that group did do that for like everyone and like we had no idea about the campaign or the stories that were going on. We just like signed up for a game that was open,
Yeah.
and then like everyone at the table were like horrified about the stuff that was going on in the game because apparently like we were breaking stuff.
I so my boyfriend actually runs like a continual campaign, like a living campaign where he
Mhm.
has multiple groups going in the same world at the same time. And I remember when I started playing, I played by myself. It was a solo campaign and I played her name was Yuri and she was a druid and I'm actually still playing. And she was a true neutral druid because she lived a sheltered life and if anything was going to determine like how she views the world, it was going to be the story she sees and the people she meets along the way. And her mentality took a really dark turn, and I started messing things up for the other players when this country called Dramaga came in and started to use biological warfare against where we're from, and they're like full on World War II Germany, like they're
Yeah.
scary. And Yuri, who doesn't know what a train is, sees a bunch of people in a metal snake and is like, "Oh my god, I have to help them." So
Yeah.
she starts sending tidal waves at this train, knocks it off its track, and it starts sliding across the ground and goes into like a ravine and explodes. And half of the train is still up on the land. And she's like, "You're welcome. I have saved you all." And everyone's like
Oops.
running and screaming.
You say break. I say make interesting.
That's fair. Yeah. I definitely do my fair share of throwing wrenches into other people's campaigns.
I mean, if nothing happens, it's not very exciting, right? So,
Very true. I like your mentality. I think I'm going to tell that to the other groups.
so for a while, me and Ted were running. We were both running a campaign, and we were running it in the same setting in the same area. So like one of us would do something and then the other one would just go and undo it. And like that would go like back and forth. One of us would make a place, the other one would burn it down. So, but I think that's where like the interesting things happen in the game is like, those points of tension. We were both running a campaign. So, you mentioned playing a bunch of different games at once. Are they all D&D games, or you playing other RPGs as well?
I tried. I tried. I really did. I tried to like get into other systems, but unfortunately, with the whole lockdown situations, I like all the potential of playing new systems because I can't play a new system over the internet. I I need someone to be sitting right here telling me what to do, especially if it's games like Pathfinder.
Okay.
Pathfinder and 3.5 are very similar and they're very confusing to me because I have a small pea brain and all the numbers just don't add up to me a lot of the times. And then I go to try and play something like Shadowrun and there's more numbers. And I'm just like, wow,
Maybe
these
you
are
should go in
pretty.
another direction, like one of the more rules light games like Fate Accelerated or something. There's tons of
I
like one page RPGs.
I do love the Fate core system.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore that. We did a one shot where Ethan ran an SCP one shot. It was one of my favorite things. We all designed or played one of the original SCPs, and I actually played a wig um, and a set of makeup. That when you put the wig on someone and then put a little bit of nice makeup on them, like maybe some eyeliner and a lip gloss, this person comes out and her name's Darla or Darcy. Darcy. I have two characters with D names, and they're Darla and Darcy, and they both talk like this. I I love the SCP one shot, and that was the Fate core system, and it was so intuitive, and you immediately picked it up and knew what was happening.
Yeah. I mean, the older I get, the less interest I have in playing really crunchy games. I'll play them if like there's a group of people playing that I'm interested in playing with. But
Right.
for the most part, you know, I I wouldn't suggest one of those to play for anyone in particular. And like I'm in a Pathfinder game now, but only because like I was invited to play in it. It's like my own inclination is if I'm going to play a D&D game, I'll probably just play 5e. And if I'm going to play a different game, then I'm probably going to want to play, a different system or a different genre
Right.
and move into a different system.
Like something entirely different, like
Yeah.
Shadowrun. Like
Yes. Like
Shadowrun.
Shadowrun, but not so crunchy. We did a Shadowrun game where we used Cipher System instead,
Oh, nice. That
which
that sounds amazing.
yeah, it worked out really good. The GM did a good job of kind of like mixing together elements from the Shadowrun game and using Cipher System. They actually did
Yeah.
it a little bit more complex or convoluted than I would have. I would have even stripped more out. But like, I just prefer like themes and concepts over mechanics anymore.
I very much enjoy the guidebook versus a rule book.
Yeah,
Like that's what, because it lends itself very naturally to I cast this spell, but this is what it looks like. Whereas like in Pathfinder, you have concrete rules for every step you take in the game. Like, oh, you took a left step during the fifth day of highest noon. Sorry, you're dead. Those are the rules.
are
Sorry.
the rules. Yeah, third edition really put that on lockdown. But I think it was good for the hobby overall. Like, it kind of built this foundation to kind of like veer off of. And I think we got a lot of good games out of that because people are like, all right, I have had enough. Let's go in a different direction.
Yeah, and like by no means am I saying like that's a bad thing. There are plenty of people, some of my closest friends included, who love those hard structural rule systems. I'm just not one of those people.
Yeah. So Charlie wants to know if Druid is your favorite class to play.
That's a hard question because I've played almost every class in the book, but I would have to say no, Druid isn't my favorite class. I think Warlock or Wizard is my closest favorites. I love Warlocks because just the raw just the raw story opportunities that from level 1 you have. Like you just it's all right there. When you pick your patron, your whole story is just right there.
Warlocks are very, very thematic, especially in 5e. They've definitely are popular and kind of seem to resonate with a lot of players for sure.
I adore, and it's one of the greatest dip classes too. So like if you like building a structured character that can do a lot, Warlock is a good multi-tool for literally everyone to use.
Yeah, and now with Magic, I guess with Magic Initiate and Eldritch Adept, you can kind of like dip without dipping.
Yeah, you can just keep going on your regular path and then just suck in certain very specific aspects of other characters that you like, which I love. I love feats. I will never take an ability score adjustment because I love feats. So because they add such a level of pizzazz to your character of like I'm I'm a wizard, but I'm also an actor who can mimic your voice perfectly. Like you can't do anything about it. It like or you could take the route of I'm a wizard who has magic initiate into warlock because I've started to research into eldritch patrons and all of a sudden I'm starting to manifest abilities of these eldritch patrons. I feel as though they have their eye on me. Like that aspect of it is there's so many story aspects you can do with feats alone that I just adore, especially with mobile.
We
How you run so fast?
Well, we just got a nice dump of more feats into the game as well uh,
Yes.
to make some more interesting choices. I'm kind of mixed. It just depends on, I guess, what I'm going for with a particular character. I tend to like so feats are more interesting, but I tend to think most of the time stat adjustments are better. Like
Or they're more reliable.
they're reliable and well mechanically anyway. But so it's funny like when we're optimizing, I'm probably going to go with stat adjustments, but when we're actually playing, I'm probably going to go with feats depending on what the character's doing as well. Also, like the feats are like you said, they add so much pizzazz. Like they can actually detract in the sense like if that's not a direction that that particular character's going in.
Right. Like if you pull like your barbarian who barely has the intelligence requirement for keen mind, like I need the story aspect of why this barbarian is so smart.
Yeah.
And typically like with the groups I play with, we all have agreed that like when feats are concerned, we only take it if it's thematically appropriate. So like my wizard's not going to take the actor feat. Like it's not going to be like all of a sudden I'm a perfect actor.
Well, let me tell you about this wizard subclass we've been working on. Um, the wizard tradition of the peacock mage, which
Oh.
is like incorporates a lot of performance and dance and like using like fans and scarves and stuff like that. We had put up a video about it. A lot of people are like, "This should be a bard." I'm like, "You're missing the point."
You're missing the whole point of the wizard being a charisma caster this time.
Yeah, yeah. So it was just something fun. So Doug wants to know, and I was actually going to ask this as well. Have you done any GMing?
I have. with varying degrees of success, I believe.
That is all of us.
Yeah. I I have a very loose brain, which is a weird thing to say, but if I don't write something down, like I'm good at improv when it comes to DM. I can roll off the cuff with someone and make up a character on the fly, but if I don't write that down, you will never see that character again because I will not admit that I do not remember this character's name. This
Yeah,
character will just disappear.
notes are super important if you're an improv GM.
For
Uh,
sure.
I am, and I have a kind of mixed degree of success with note taking.
I I I'm terrible at taking notes. If you watch me on D4, when things are happening and I'm just sitting there and they're like describing or like giving out big names that we should remember, you'll see me just sitting there like this, listening to it, and I'm not writing anything down because like I don't want to. I don't like
I
taking
feel you.
notes.
I'm very similar in that regards. Um, we
But
do
I will
have.
say I am running. If anyone wants to see me DM for the first time on live air, I will be running a one shot for some of the D4 people as a charity incentive goal that we did last year for the Extra Life event. And we raised like $8,000.
Oh,
I
nice! Congrats.
can't remember the exact numbers, but we reached a goal, and I will be running a one shot on Twitch on the Rock Punch ATL sometime this year because I'm still planning it for the people who donated.
Very cool. Uh, so people keep your eyes open to so you can bear witness.
I'm a very I'm a very mean DM. I like to make people cry. I'm very much like my cousin in that aspect.
Oh
If I
no.
make you cry, it's a job well done.
Uh, I've definitely played with some mean GMs over the years, but their goal wasn't really to make you cry. They just want to kill your character. So
See, that's a different kind of mean.
yeah,
That's a not fun mean. Like I'm a mean in the way of I like to make you invested in characters or the story and then rip the rug out from under you. I'm not here to kill you. My job's not here to make sure that your character dies. My job is to lay out a story for you to explore. And if you die, I guess you should have done better. Like I'm not here to
yeah,
directly
yeah.
kill you. If your DM is there to kill you, I think you have the wrong DM. I don't think that DM likes you.
Well, I mean, it used to be a kind of a style play where the GMs were much more.
Harsh.
Um, what's the word I'm looking for?
Cutthroat.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of, but also adversarial, right? And it just used to be kind of a style play, which I've seen. I'm glad to see that it's kind of gone out of style.
It's
Because
like starting a new Dark Souls game on Depraved, playing in their campaigns. It's the world is against you, your allies are against you, everyone's a jerk, and you have nothing. Good luck. Save the
yeah,
world.
sounds familiar. That was probably like the first half of our gaming. But fortunately, and again, it was weird. Like, so GMs were very adversarial in the early days, but like the better ones had their own like code of honor or rules that they played by, and they wouldn't break. So it kind of made it fair-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and I grew out of that fairly quick, and also too, it's like it was pointless anyway. It's like, I mean, I have this whole big book of monsters if I really want to kill your characters, and there's all
Yeah.
these things plus whatever I can make up. So there's
Yeah,
no
like
fun in that.
if I really wanted to kill you, it'd be as simple as putting Tiamat in front of you.
Yeah.
So, point blank
Or
period.
just go grumpy cat. Rocks fall, you die.
Yeah. I do have a question for you
Sure.
because this is a question I wonder about everyone who's familiar with DMing is it okay for a DM to fudge the die roll?
I'm going to say that's a very personal thing, but if you're
Yeah,
going to do it, your players must never know.
right.
So
I
I,
agree.
I don't know. It's been years now, but I tend to roll out in the open,
Mhm.
and obviously when we're playing on stream, that doesn't really happen as much. But
Yeah.
um, when we play in person, like I have a GM screen and I have a dice tray, and my dice tray is on their side of the DM screen, and whatever happens, happens. And there's
I
definitely been times like we're in the middle of an encounter. I'm like, ooh, this is looking ugly.
This is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the first session I ever ran. It was for two of my friends, and it was a game where they started in the real world, our world, and then slowly the world started to change into Dungeons and Dragons, and they would get sucked into it. So they went in the school, they went out of the lunchroom and came back into the lunchroom, and there were giant spiders everywhere. And I was like, cool, they're level 1. They'll get to the girl with the orb and they'll teleport out. So they roll initiative, spiders go first. And it's not like the actual giant spider, which is a big scary monster. It was just like something I made up of like a medium-sized big spider that does like a D4 point of damage plus like 2 or something. And I was sitting there and I'm not going to lie to you, this was the moment I realized that sometimes fudging is necessary because I rolled, and this is right out of the gate. We've been playing for 20 minutes, and this is the first campaign they've ever played in. I rolled a natural 20, and I was like, okay. And I rolled the damage. It was enough to outright kill her level 1 character. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. You're unconscious. You're just unconscious. Have a good time. And I told her the number, and she was like, what does it mean if I drop to like -1? And I'm like, that's crazy. It brought you to -1. It just means you're unconscious and you're bleeding out. And I wasn't going to kill her character 20 minutes into the game
Mhm.
because I misunderstood the power levels of what I thought I could, of what I thought they could handle.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, so there's ways to intercede and change things without fudging. And again, I'm not saying anyone can do it however they want. Like it's your game. Um, and I've just kind of moved in a direction where when I game that there are other levers I feel like I have to pull as the GM, and it's aside from just like changing the dice.
Yeah, like
Um,
suddenly an ally appears or a boon is granted. Like there's a lot you can do other than fudging the dice that help a lot more. And I think fudging a die roll is the last resort, personally to me. Like the only way I will fudge a die roll is if I have made a mistake.
yeah,
Like
like in the spider example, like I kind of like the idea if they all fall to the spider, and instead of killing them, they just wake up in the spider's web, cocoon, right?
that's
And
a
then
good
like they have
idea.
to like figure out how to get out and what are they going to do next? Where's their stuff? Maybe just because they lose or defeat it doesn't mean the story has to end, but it might go in a different direction.
Yeah. I like that. I wish I would have known that or thought of that when I was running it because it's a really good idea.
Also hindsight is 2020 and it's a lot easier to look back than it is to look forward and figure that stuff out. I think too, like as GMs, a lot of times we feel like we have to advocate certain things instantly and right away.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't. Like if the character drops, right, you can wait and see what happens with the rest of the group and just not tell them. Right. And they're like, when they ask, should I be rolling, should I roll death saves or it's time for me to roll a death save, you could just say, don't worry about it yet. And as you decide what you want to do,
Uh-huh.
um,
I will
with
say
it.
one of my favorite things that I started doing in a home game that I carried on to D4 and now we do it all the time is I don't roll my death saves publicly. I roll them privately and then I will send a note to the DMs telling them what I rolled, or I would text them what I rolled so that the party can't inherently, because whether we like it or not, if a party member is down and you know they're
Yeah.
down 2 death saves, you're like, I got to get to them now. But if you don't know what death saves they are, you have to weigh the options of, do I go for them now or do I think they have time? And that's a huge thing for me because the first time I decided to roll in private was a home game with a character that I loved with all of my heart. She was a time cleric, a tiefling who was like 16 years old. I loved her a lot. She came back from the future. Long story. But she was laying in the ocean after getting crushed by a hill giant controlled by a hag. And I was rolling it, and I was rolling it completely dead face, like deadpan. And I was rolling it and I rolled a natural 1 into a 4. So I was dead in 2 rounds, but I kept rolling until someone came up to my body to make them think that, "Oh, I'm still good. I'm still good. Like, I'm still rolling death saves. I'm not dead yet."
Yeah.
But I was dead after 2, and when they found the body, I had been dead for fully a minute and a half. And they were devastated, I was devastated, but they were like, "Why didn't we get here sooner?" And I was like, "I don't know. Why didn't you get here sooner?"
You murdered my favorite character.
Yeah, I was like, "It's not your fault, but, like, you were close enough to heal me and you didn't."
The our first character death in 5e, we didn't do that, but we like Ted was running, and at the time, like only the player's handbook was out. None of the other books were even out yet.
Right.
And one of the characters got dropped, and so we did get to the character, but they had failed a death save, and no one had a medicine kit. No one had spare the dying. We had no clerics. So someone tried a medicine check and failed. And on the very next death save, they rolled a 1. And that was it, right, for that character. So we kind of learned some lessons there. But I do like the idea of, the hidden death saves, because it does add urgency. And like you said, like the problem is when a character's down, either they stabilize and then everyone's like, well, whatever, though we'll just get to it at the end of the combat, or like, oh, we got 3 rounds, that's no big deal.
Yeah, you get comfortable with the knowledge of knowing other people's death saves, which in game you wouldn't know, and that's inherently metagaming. We just don't think of it as metagaming because it's so common. So I really wanted to change that and be like, nope, you don't get to know how far along I am. If you really want to save me, you'll save me when I drop.
It's time to find out who really cares.
Exactly.
I love it. And also, I've played with, so Esper the Bard had run a game for us, and with their NPCs and monsters were ruthless. Yeah. They like always, like after you went down, they just finished you off.
I love Esper.
So forget death saves. Someone better do something real quick. You're going to be dead.
Oh, and that's another advice I can new DMs that I've had to learn is don't be afraid to do killing blows. Oh, it shakes people to their core when this intelligent creature that you're fighting, who knows that healing magic exists, when all of a sudden they turn and go, you know what? This is a valuable member of your party. Stab.
Yeah.
You want to continue fighting me, or do you want to go away? That it makes almost every group of adventurers go, like, just listen. You'll hear every one of them audibly gasp when you killing blow one of the characters. Don't do it a lot. Like, don't have an ogre that's all of a sudden stomping someone to death. It just seems like you hate that person. But like, if you have an enemy that they're fighting and it's an intelligent, evil, conniving enemy, pick out the number 1 soft, friendly character in the group and say, I'm going after you. And when you take down that sweet little cinnamon bun of sunshine, just killing blow them right there. And you'll make the party hate your villain without having to do really anything.
And also, you can kind of do that without killing them, because it's just 2 failed death saves, right? Mechanically, right? But they're 1 away from being done for good.
Yeah, and that creates a huge amount of tension. Yeah. And it shows, like, if your villain is so evil, they also might be super arrogant. So they do a killing blow and then they're like, all right, I'm done here. Goodbye. And you take that time to like go over and investigate the person. Or if the fight continues and that person fights back from the precipice of death, it creates this huge amount of tension between the heroes and the villain, because you already have an instant dynamic between y'all of like, oh no, I hate you.
I had like made this hybrid myconid vampire kind of lich like creature that the party was facing off with, and so it would regenerate if you didn't do radiant damage to it. And Ted was playing a cleric and kept doing radiant damage to it. So when he dropped Ted's character, it took an action to stomp on his body just because he hated him so much for being able to do actual real damage to it.
Yeah, like never be afraid to let the fight dictate how the monsters act towards the players. Like once again, if your enemies that you're fighting are like the servants of an unholy order, they would immediately recognize a cleric in the group. And you'll notice they're going to start focusing that cleric and be like, we're taking out your healer. Like giving your enemies and monsters within reason strategy. And sometimes if they're connected directly to the main boss, even information about the characters themselves to kind of toy with them, is a huge tool that you can use to your advantage to build suspense and tension between the players themselves and the people you want them to perceive as bad guys. It's beautiful. I love strategy and combat.
I ran a campaign on our channel called the Scarlet Sisterhood, and later they had a cleric character introduced, and during one of the combats, the cleric had like popped up 2 players like back to back, and then all the monsters were like, you know what? Fuck this guy. And then they dropped the cleric and then attacked the cleric at least once while they were down.
I mean, it only makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's like in video games, like in an MMORPG, like World of Warcraft, or literally any other game. If you're the one doing the most damage sometimes to a simple creature, if you're the one doing the most damage, you're going to be the one taking the hits, because that creature is going to want to make you stop hitting it because you're hitting it the hardest.
Yeah. Whenever I use like animal like monsters, I usually have them just attack whoever attacked last. Whoever hit it last. Yeah, whoever heard it last. And then those same monsters, like if they drop a player, they're gonna grab it and try and make off with them.
Yeah, especially wolves.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Don't be afraid to make your enemies run away, like even if they're winning, because sometimes, like what you just said, if a bear, well, no, bears stand their ground, but like if a wolf, like a solitary lone wolf, is by itself in the woods and you're a bunch of level 1 adventurers and it manages to take one of you down, that wolf is 100% going to try and grab you, grab the dead character and try and book it away as fast as possible to eat this thing. It's not going to stick around and defend itself. It's going to be like, all right, deuces, I got my food. Bye.
Yeah. It's not a honey badger, for the love of God. Yeah. It just wants to grab a bite to eat and go. So we are coming up on the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
I loved this. I loved getting to talk to you. I love Nerdarchy. This is a huge like dream come true for me. I think y'all are some of the funniest people on YouTube for D&D that I've ever witnessed. And if I can give one final bit of advice, it's to not take yourself so seriously when play Dungeons and Dragons, especially when you're playing a serious character, because there's nothing better than a serious character being goofy once in a while.
Awesome advice, and thank you for the kind words. I think you should dream bigger, but I do appreciate the kind words, and thanks for coming on. And everyone else, until next time, stay nerdy.